The number of fraud cases reported in Kent has risen by more than a quarter in the year to June, according to new figures from the ONS, the Office for National Statistics. And in a 12-month period, Action Fraud says victims in Kent lost over £64 million to fraudsters. Detective Inspector Helen Smithers from Kent Police says there's been a rise in everything from romance fraud to adverts for puppies that don't exist.
There has been, as I said, an increase in romance scams. This is quite a difficult one, as criminals go to great lengths to gain victims' trust by building online relationships that people believe is genuine. And then they start scamming individuals for money, such as stating they might need money for, say, a medical emergency or to pay for transport costs, to see the victim as they live overseas. And victims in these cases often don't believe they are victims, and when they do realise, they don't want to report it. There's all sorts. There's fake puppy scams where people have advertised puppies for sale that are non-existent, selling property or items that just don't exist.
That's Helen Smithers, Detective Inspector from Kent Police. Philip Ingram is a former senior military intelligence officer who researches cyber security, and he says COVID lockdowns have made the situation worse.
The rise in online fraud and scams is really down to two things. One, we're doing so much more online, so people are interacting and carrying out their business. The criminals know that and try to exploit it, often in a very sophisticated way. And two, because of COVID, people have been forced to stay at home and order things online, do an awful lot more business online, and the criminals have been forced to stay at home and look at new ways of expanding their criminal empires and their criminal businesses, and have expanded that into online exploitation.
That was Philip Ingram, a former senior military intelligence officer. Now this year, BBC reporter John Ironmonger recorded a call he received from a scammer who pretended to be from his bank.
What do you need from me then?
So just launch your mobile app for me, but do not log in. This is only just for safeguarding process, because these people up in Bradford might have a lot of information because of that phishing scam.
Look, Richard, I'm not taken in by this. I think other people might be, though, and that does worry me. But I do wonder if you're proud of yourself trying to fleece people out of their hard-earned cash like this. And I do actually wonder how many vulnerable or elderly people you have defrauded like this.
Now, that is quite disrespectful, sir, because
it can cause serious psychological harm, this can.
I will verify my identity to you once more. So the number I'm contacting you from...
Richard, you're not convincing me, Richard. I know you're a scammer, if that's even your name. My bank has confirmed it. I spoke to them in the interim. I know that you're a scammer, Richard.
Oh, I love John Ironmonger for that. It's a brilliant piece of reporting. Now, Kent Trading Standards say they're also dealing with a growing number of victims who've lost money to a host of both online and doorstep crimes. They're still happening too. Clive Phillips is one of their operations managers. Clive, really nice to have you on the show. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you. You?
Yeah, I enjoyed that John Ironmonger phone call, didn't you? It was really nice to see the tables being turned.
It's brilliant. Often when I get a phone call from a scammer, I do tend to speak to them for longer than we recommend, just to get an idea of what they're up to. And then at the end, I give them a little bit of advice, much like...
Do you? You have calls
John,
like that? Brilliant.
Absolutely.
So satisfying. Okay, let's talk about how rife this crime is. And I know within this crime, we're talking about quite a lot of things that people can be caught out with. We talked about online and doorstep crimes. There's still things on the telephone as well. But just taking all of those into account, is this a massive problem?
Well, the first thing to say is we don't actually know the true national scale of the problem. Reason being is because so many different agencies record the statistics in different ways. There's no real one central point of recording, but it's a given that fraud is the biggest perpetrated crime in the UK at the moment. I have a safeguarding officer in my team. She goes out to just the most vulnerable people that report incidents of fraud or scams, whether that be online or doorstep type perpetrated crimes. And of 100 people that she visited this year already, they've lost collectively £1.1 million. So it's a significant area of crime, and we're working with our partners in Kent Police to track down some of these people and bring them to justice.
We're going to talk in a moment to Paul, who was the victim of a scam involving used cars, or imaginary used cars, in a moment. What other types of scams are, if you like, in vogue at the moment?
Well, I had to check last night on this, and of those 100 people, the vast majority are doorstep criminals. So people who knock on the door and say, you got a tile loose on your roof, I can go up and fix it for you. And then they come down and say the whole roof needs repairing. So roofing, guttering, gardening, they're still hot topic areas for us, and it's keeping us busy. But in terms of online, we've still got the investment scams. Only the other week we had an elderly gentleman who invested £7,000 in cryptocurrency following an advert on Facebook. The HMRC scam is still very prevalent, where you get an automated telephone call and you're told that you're being investigated for not paying your taxes, and you need to press 1 to speak to an agent. Otherwise, you're going to get agents come around and arrest you. So there's lots of different types of scams online, telephone. Don't see much in the post anymore, but they still happen. But what's keeping us really busy is Doorstep Crime at the moment.
How can we protect our loved ones? Because some people are more vulnerable to these. I mean, actually, when we speak to Paul in a second, it'll surprise a lot of people, and I think it surprised him that he was fooled by one of these scams. But who are the most vulnerable people, and how do we help protect them?
I think we're all vulnerable at the moment working online. I think the best bit of advice I could give is never assume you're talking to the people that they say they are. So never assume it's your bank on the phone. Never assume it's HMRC or Amazon calling you. Always try to confirm the identity of the person on the phone or on the internet. If you know someone particularly vulnerable in your family, you need to make sure that you're having regular conversations with them about how they are, what they're up to. But often a lot of vulnerable people don't have members of the family. So we ask people to look out for their neighbours. General piece of advice for anyone having work done on their home is to get 3 quotes. We do actually run a trading standards checked scheme where we vet traders. People can go online and select them from that website, but carry out your own research into traders. If you have someone particularly vulnerable in your family, you might want to consider securing power of attorney over their finances. But it's just about looking out for each other really, and doing your research.
I'm just looking through my text messages, and I've got one that comes up all the time on my phone, and I get regularly get told I've missed a delivery and I need to make a charge to have it redelivered. That one comes up pretty systematically. Another one insists that it's important, it doesn't even get my name right, that I contact Virgin Media Mobile Finance routinely. And I've had a phone number that there was a phone call into my phone. I didn't recognise the number. It was an 01229 call, and I thought I'm just going to Google the number. And helpfully these days, lots of people who get suspect phone calls that may lead to scams and so on, they log it. And if you look these numbers up, you can see how other people rate them. There's lots of ways, aren't there, of checking what's going on and whether this is a legitimate person contacting you or not.
Yeah, I mean, so doing a check on the telephone number like you just explained is an excellent way of checking whether someone's legitimate or not. There's lots of review websites and bits and pieces, but some of these emails and some of these texts are very convincing. What we always say is, if you receive an email from a company, whether it be your bank or somebody else, always go directly to the website of that company. Always go direct to their advertised telephone number, and don't be fooled into clicking links in emails. Never click a link in an email or a text message. Always go direct to the business and seek their advice.
Has it got worse, Clive, do you think, over the pandemic period? And if so, is that just a consequence of something you've said a couple of times, which is we are all online more?
Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic, the online scams went through the roof. But now this year, looking after the lockdown's finished, we're at the point of loss to victims that we were for the whole of last year. And that's pretty much down to doorstep criminals. But I totally agree with what you say there. We're all vulnerable because we're all online. You've only got to look in your spam box to see someone's trying to scam you every single day. I'll probably get at least one text message a day from Royal Mail telling me that I've got to go and pay an unpaid fee, otherwise I won't get my post. So it only takes someone to be not on their guard one day and click a link or give some information, and then unfortunately some people lose money.
Clive, thank you very